everyone, and welcome to another edition of Learning Bites with Booming Encore. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore. Today, I'm joined by Edd and Cynthia Staton. As a result of the economic crisis in 2008, Edd and Cynthia found themselves needing to reduce their living expenses, and to help them do this, they actually relocated to Ecuador. Fast forward to today, and they are loving their new life in their newfound country. And they're now sharing their knowledge of living abroad with others. They're joining me today to discuss their journey and to help others understand what's involved. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Susan. We're honored to be your guest.
Well, great to have you. Well, let's just start off. How did you find out yourselves retiring in Ecuador rather than somewhere else?
Well, considering when we began this process, we couldn't have pinpointed Ecuador on a blank map of South America. That's really an excellent question. Backing up just to briefly cover what you already said, we are victims, casualties of the Great Recession of 2008. We were close to retirement, had great jobs, and what we thought was a solid financial plan until we didn't. Our careers vanished, our home lost 2/3 of its value almost overnight, and our investments were in free fall. After months of unemployment and living on shrinking savings, we knew we had to come up with a radical solution, and that was to take the assets we had left, retire early, and move abroad to a lower cost of living.
Well, but a lower cost of living just wasn't enough, Susan. I told Ed, I said, we have to make a wish list of everything we want in this new home abroad so that we can have a better chance of being happy and being successful there. So we did make that wish list, and we, through our internet research, we found Cuenca, Ecuador, and seemed like it checked all our boxes. So we planned a scouting trip, and in 2010, we stepped off the plane in Cuenca, Ecuador. That scouting trip exceeded all of our expectations, and so here we are.
Wow. So why do you think living abroad is something people would even want to consider for retirement? I mean, beyond the cost of living aspects.
Well, it's no secret that the baby boomer generation is struggling with not having enough savings, and wondering, many people are wondering how they're ever going to be able to retire. So certainly the lower cost of living is a huge factor in making those plans for your retirement, and it doesn't being talked about enough. So we appreciate you talking about it.
Yeah, studies have kind of shown for this baby boomer generation, you can kind of divide them into two groups. Group A hasn't saved anything, and Group B is worried that they haven't saved enough. And we know that moving abroad is a great solution for both of those situations.
Yeah, it's certainly not for everybody, but it's been a great option for us. We have been able to enjoy an upscale lifestyle.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. You can have a Social Security budget, and instead of living on ramen noodles and whatever else you would do with that budget, you can actually have an upscale lifestyle by moving to a different country.
So what are some of the benefits that you've experienced so far?
Oof. Wow, where do you even start? We we have a stress-free life, that's for sure. Cynthia and I are Goldilocks people. We don't like it too hot or too cold. We moved here from Las Vegas, so we certainly had enough of heat.
Climate was one of the things on our wish list.
Yeah, and where we live here, even though we're on the equator, you would think it would be super hot, but we're at 8,200 feet. So it's springtime all the time here. Right now, we're having our version of winter, which means that the highs are in the 60s instead of in the 70s. Ooh, really chilly, right? We have excellent health, and we have excellent and affordable health care. We're part of Ecuador's national health care system. Our total premiums are $81 a month. That's for both of us. We have 100% coverage, zero deductible, no restrictions for age or pre-existing conditions. So that's a huge plus. What would you add?
Well, the other thing that we've been able to do, because we have lowered our cost of living, is to preserve the savings that we were able to maintain and to actually grow our nest egg rather than deplete it. And we've also, Susan, had some fabulous travel experiences here in South America.
Yeah, kind of what Cynthia said, it's kind of the retirement trifecta. when you can lower your cost of living, up level your lifestyle, and preserve or grow your nest egg. I mean, does it get any better than that?
Well, that all sounds great, but I'm sure that there's probably some things you're missing. What would you say those are?
Well, I'll take that one. The first thing that I'll say is that when we came here in the beginning, I missed English. Just everything being in English. I'm not a Spanish speaker, and just your whole world and your native language is something I didn't realize that I would miss so much. But over time, that's changed. I think I have adapted somewhat, and actually the city that we live in has changed. For an example, the taxi driver I had yesterday, I always ask if they speak any English, and so he did, and asked him where he learned his English, and he said, he was a grandfather, by the way, and he said, I started taking English classes. And I just thought that was great. And this city has really changed so much. There are many, many more things in English, from signs to menus and that sort of thing. So I don't miss it so much.
And for me, I'm kind of a food guy. So when we first moved here, I really had in my mind that I was missing all these things, and I made extensive lists of what I needed to eat when we went back to visit family and all that sort of thing. Two things have changed in that regard. One is what Cynthia referred to. There's a lot more availability now than there was a decade ago. You can get French butter and microgreens and Jif peanut butter and all sorts of things like that. So we mule back a lot less items than we used to. And regarding those things, I just realized over time they weren't as important as they seemed to be to start with. When I decided that I no longer had to have Popeye's fried chicken every time we went back, I knew that I was cured.
Now, just speaking on that, what about family and friends? Like, how are you managing without that? I'm sure you probably have all your family and friends back in the U.S.
Well, one thing that we created right away when we became expat, our sense of community, and that's really important that you do that, especially in retirement, because as you know, isolation is a huge problem for retirees once they leave the workforce. So we created our community of friends here, and then we set aside enough money in our budget to go back and visit family. And when the grandchildren started coming along, that was even more important. And because we are retired, we can stay for weeks, and sometimes it's been months at a time when we do make those visits.
Yeah, and in between visits, just like we're talking to you right now, we have sometimes daily visits with our grandchildren. They're reading us stories and so forth and so on. So technology has just made this whole expat experience so much easier than back in the pre-internet days, for sure.
Well, that sounds great. Now, what if someone was interested in retiring abroad? What would you suggest they do to get started?
Well, the first thing that I would suggest they do is follow the same process that we've outlined in our master course, Retirement Reimagined. First thing being to kind of figure out what it is that they'd be looking for in their new home abroad. Create that wish list and do that internal work before they start just looking at countries and locations. And also kind of identify their deal breakers. And then the next thing would be, after they've kind of narrowed down some countries and places within the countries, to plan a scouting trip. Yeah, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, you might wonder, what's a deal breaker? Quick example, let's say that you've done some research on a place and it sounds fabulous, everything about it you love, but you're on a specific medication and you learn that that medication isn't available in that country. Well, it doesn't matter what the positive attributes are. You can't move there, right? Another thing you need to do is determine your budget. That sounds like a given, but you'd be amazed how many people just don't seem to get around to that. Maybe that's why there's all these savings problems for the baby boomers. But armed with how much you've got to spend in retirement, and what you really want, which may be something you never actually asked yourself before. You're always, what's my family want? What's my career want? What's society want? This is a chance to have a total reinvention. And so armed with the knowledge of what you want and how much you can afford, then you can really start matching that up with the best country and places within the country that you feel like would suit you. And then, like Cynthia said, take that scouting trip. Don't rely totally on internet research. Don't even believe us. You got to go and see if it's right for you in your heart, not just what's in your head, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing this with us in the sense that this offers an option that people possibly haven't thought of before. And so by you at least bringing it forward and showing the example that it is actually possible, may make people start to think about it a bit. So thank you both for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. We enjoyed it.
And to everybody out there, we hope that you found this information valuable and it helps you live your best booming encore. Bye for now, everyone.